the Knicks were absolutely gashed in that Pacers series. We saw them lose literally everybody. Comment section was not a fan of us that week. But we were watching the Joakim Noah podcast. He was on one of the NBA podcasts, and he was talking about playing under Tom Thibodeau and the Kyle Korver lore, which I didn't know it really existed. This is back in Chicago, where he would witness Kyle Korver stay in his car to the very last minute, just blankingly staring at the arena until he absolutely had to come in, reminding us of all of us who maybe work in an office or having to clock in for work, just waiting, having that little time in between, because he didn't want to go in there because they would be doing defensive slides the day after a large playoff game. So the Tom Thibodeau arc, where the comment section has driven us crazy for it, has absolutely tore us apart. Looks like Joakim Noah is on the Brickyard side.
Yeah, and he talked about like Tom Thibodeau and his issue as a head coach here. And I think the point that people misunderstood is we're saying that the Knicks were tired and they lost because Tom Thibodeau plays people way too much during the regular season. He rides guys in January, he rides guys in February, and the injuries and them being tired and losing goes hand in hand because throughout his career, he has ruined many other careers here. And Derrick Rose, he ran him into the ground. And it's not just us that talk about Tom Thibodeau. Tom Thibodeau is also voted the most times of any other head coach, the coach that people would want to play for the least, not by us, by the NBA players. And what does that tell you? It means the NBA players don't really mess with Tom Thibodeau. Jimmy Butler and him had their words exchanged back and forth during the NBA playoffs. And then the NBA players themselves are also talking about how the coach they want to play for the least is Tom Thibodeau, and it takes a special type of mentality to want to go out there and play for him. But again, his coaching style, if we're doing defensive slides after losing a playoff game, if we're working out hard after an NBA playoff game, it can benefit you. If you do a light workout and you're lifting some weights after game, sure, we'll get the lactic acid out. But when it comes to Tom Thibodeau, this is a guy who has a track record of getting his entire team injured. It's a guy who has a track record of ruining Derrick Rose's career, and we kind of got robbed of seeing Derrick Rose become one of the greatest players in NBA history when he had such a young and promising career. Some of that is bad luck with Derrick Rose. Some of that, though, is on Thibodeau when we see him go from team to team to team, and we see Jalen Brunson get hurt. We see Julius Randle get hurt. We see OG Anunoby get hurt. We see Bogdan Bogdanovic get hurt. We see Josh Hart get hurt in that game, and he was pushing through it. And then we also see Mitchell get hurt as well in that series. And I'm like, okay, it'd be one thing if it was the NBA finals or the conference finals, but this guy's been past the second round once. You know what you have to do to get to the second round? Win one playoff series. Okay, pretty reasonable. You know what you need to do to get past the second round? Win two. Dude has only done that once. One time. And now with the East, Giannis, if he's healthy next year, you're not beating the Bucks. The Pacers' future is brighter than yours. Rick Carlisle doesn't get his entire team injured. You're lucky if you get to a conference championship.
Yeah, I think this was their year. I put them in the conference finals before the playoffs even started because I felt like they were the healthiest. Well, to some extent, they were they had the chemistry and they had the gritty mentality that maybe they could make the conference finals. But as soon as they lost to the Pacers, this was the window that they had because we know the NBA, we know how the DNA of it changes each year. I think the Pacers have a much brighter future with Pascal Siakam and Tyrese Halliburton. I think that obviously the Bucks, with what happened with him and Dame, both of them going down, obviously they're going to be back in the mix next year, assuming they both stay. The Celtics aren't going anywhere. Everyone's locked up. And the list goes on. I think, what happens with Cleveland, how they change that up, they are still around. I don't think the Knicks are going to have that same magic that they had this year. This was a once in a couple years situation. And especially with, I think, seeing all these players go down, do they start to lose the locker room a little bit? One of the things also Joakim Noah mentioned on the podcast was they'd be up by 20 and they'd have, maybe like two threes hit the last minute of the game. Maybe they win by 14 and him ripping them apart for that. That's something that wears on you over the course of a full season, but then also over the course of multiple seasons. Will he start to lose the locker room if this continues?
Yeah, and the thing is, with a coach like that who's gonna rip you for like missing two threes there, and rip you for regular season games and constantly put that pressure on you, at some point you have to accomplish something. And Tom Thibodeau
Mhm.
hasn't. Like at some point you have to be, if you're gonna have the mentality of a Bill Belichick. What does Bill Belichick have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 rings from being a coach with the New York Giants. And Greg Popovich is a similar coach who would rip people for this, but you also have to have that balance there. And then even a coach like Chris Finch for the Minnesota Timberwolves gets his team to the conference championship. A very intense guy, but what they say is he has a very good sense of humor as well, where it doesn't really seem like Tom Thibodeau has kind of that give and take. And when you're multiple times the NBA players voted as the least likely coach that they would want to play for, the coach you'd want to play for the least, what does that tell you? Help is not on the way. And it's just going to be running it back with the same team every single year. And how often do we see a player like Jalen Brunson being righted this much in his career for year after year after year? Typically, those players don't make it that long where they're able to carry the load for 5, 6, 7 years with this amount of usage rate. If you're going to ride someone like Brunson this much without having a bona fide second star in that team, you're going to have maybe a 3 to 5 year window, and then his body's going to start to break down. And we saw that in the second round happen.
We saw that happen with Derrick Rose. That was exactly the situation that happened 15 years ago. He's had the highest usage rate since joining the Knicks, and he's been fantastic. Don't get me wrong, but they need another person there for them to solidify it. Otherwise, he's going to wear down. The only player that had that high of a usage rate that succeeded for a long time was the unicorn that was LeBron James.
Yeah.
And obviously, he had his help along the way with whether it be D Wade or Kyrie Irving and all the other guys in between. But he doesn't have that here. He's got, Dante DiVincenzo, friend of the show. But they don't have that number two. Julius Randle certainly isn't. So we'll see if his philosophy changes. He's been coaching for 30 years, so I doubt it will. But remains to be seen whether he'll finally have that pan out for him.
Yeah, but yeah, we saw it from Joakim Noah, and then we've also seen it from the NBA players voting him as someone that they do not want to play for. So I don't think help is on the way. Nick's chance was this year. Unfortunately, that they did not get it done.